Well, hello and welcome back to the Great Film Challenge. I, of course, am your host, Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself, and here with me today, once again, is my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So we are back celebrating Pride with our next film on the list. And it is Brokeback Mountain. Now, I will say, as we discussed last time, I had seen this before. I'm trying to remember if I watched it. I think I watched it as part of a follow along with a podcast I was listening to. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what it was. But I mean, this was a film that I remember when it came out.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit, but didn't see it then, and had over the years developed more of an interest in just kind of seeing what it was about.
Yeah.
It was one of those films that was definitely talked about.
I was going to say, I've always heard about it.
Sure. So you had not seen this movie.
No.
Going in. Did you have... You knew what it was about, though, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean... It's kind of, unfortunately, some circles would use it like as a slur, the term Brokeback is pretty synonymous.
Yeah.
With people in the LGBT community.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had some awareness, but you hadn't seen it before. So I will say a lot of times after the films, we will kind of talk about, or we'll just immediately say what we think. We haven't talked about what you thought about this film at all. So I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on this film. Like I said last time, I was a little concerned because I know that,
yeah,
romance isn't really your type of story. Love stories aren't really your thing. And this definitely is that, but it's from it's different because
of the setting.
Well, the setting, and because it is a queer romance.
Yeah.
In America in the 60s through the 80s.
Yeah.
It has to be hidden.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect to it as well.
I'm not really sure what I liked about it. Okay. I did like the movie.
Okay.
I'm not sure what specifically.
Sure.
I think they were all... Well, they had really good actors, of course.
Yeah.
At least the ones that I know. And I think they all did a really good job. A lot. I don't know. I'm not sure what to take from the movie yet.
I mean, we can talk about it, and maybe we'll figure out a little bit more what you think. So, like I said, this film, I haven't really broke it down. It is from 2005, directed by Ang Lee, and starring Heath Ledger, Jake Gyllenhaal, Anne Hathaway, and Michelle Williams, among many, many more, of course. Mm-hmm. But when this film came out, it was pretty everybody talked about this film, whether it was in a positive way or a negative way.
Yeah.
This got a lot of attention. And at the time, I felt much differently than I do now about the subject matter. And at the time, I really didn't have any interest in seeing it. But, over the years, I have evolved, grown, changed.
Yeah.
And by the time that I did get to see this, it really affected me. Like, it's, for anyone that out there, for some reason, you don't know what it is about. It is about two men, two ranch hands, played by Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal, Ennis and Jack, who basically get hired to, watch a man's sheep over the summer, and they end up spending a lot of time together and eventually fall in love.
Yeah.
And then have to go on with their lives and can't walk away from this relationship.
Yeah.
And end up continually throughout the course of the film, which covers about 20 years, maybe a little bit more, and kind of just shows how each one of them deals in their own way with kind of this secret life that they are forced to live.
Yes.
I will say Ennis is much more closeted. He's much...
Yeah.
I mean, Ennis as a character, honestly, I find Heath Ledger's portrayal really interesting because he's so quiet. Pretty much every character makes point to the fact that he really doesn't talk much.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of so introverted and so in himself. Jack really is the only person that really kind of brings personality out of him.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of, the their dynamic. But Ennis he's much more, not willing to engage, not willing to even consider the idea of coming out. Whereas Jack, much more, he actually seeks it out from others. Obviously, Ennis is, his, I guess you would probably say the love of his life. But he does end up engaging other men just because, Ennis lives in Wyoming. Jack lives in Texas, apparently 16 hours away, he says at one point. And he goes and sees him at least 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot. They both end up marrying women and having families. To differing degrees. Jack's relationship, pretty much, they have one child pretty much after they get together. You can even see in the way that it's depicted, she pretty much gets lost in her work.
Yeah.
He says at one point that their marriage could really be done over the phone. She's just kind of not engaged with anyone except for the business. Whereas, and at least overtly, never really finds out about the two of them. Though I do think that there are some hints, at least in the way that Anne Hathaway plays her final conversation with Ennis, that she might be starting to realize.
I was gonna say it looked like basically everyone had realized, at least the closer ones.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know that Ennis's wife, Alma, Michelle Williams, finds out pretty much the moment she meets Jack. I will say Jack's wife never meets Ennis. Until that phone call. So that is probably part of it. Whereas Michelle Williams's character, Alma, walks in on not really walks in, but walks to the door and just happens to see their little hidey hole that they have.
They're very open hidey hole.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think in that moment they were like, let's get out of the open, but then just didn't think about.
I was going to say they weren't really thinking.
Yeah.
But like, who would in that moment?
Sure.
Considering the situation. I was about to say
that's not really what's on their mind. In that moment. But yeah, it's, and the way that she reacts to it is very interesting because number one, there is the infidelity aspect. They're married. Here he is, obviously, attracted to someone else, and then the fact that it's the 60s and it's another man. So to the point where she actually confronts him at one point after a dinner that actually seemed very cordial and very successful for this blended sort of family. But she's been quiet throughout their marriage, and now that they're separated, she's done being quiet. I get it, and unfortunately, attitudes being the way they were, it is what it is. But I found kind of the struggle of these two characters really interesting to watch. It's definitely it's heartbreaking to see, because you can tell that these two guys obviously care about each other, they obviously love each other, but in the society and the time that they are in, there were definitely people who were out, who did live together. But, as Ennis points out, he knew a couple of men who were when he was growing up. And one of them was killed for it. And it's to the point where he's like, his dad showed him the body. And he's like, I don't even know, maybe he did it. So this hate is so built in him. We see kind of the display of, even though they're feeling the way that they are, they still themselves have kind of this societal inbuilt homophobia. It takes them a long time to really be honest with themselves. And I mean, Ennis, I don't think it's not really till towards the end of the film that he's able to really be honest with himself. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else, any other thoughts or things that you're remembering that you want to talk about?
The struggle, like where they actually showed, was really engaging. We didn't always see like as much of Jack until we got later in, and then we saw more of him.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it goes back and forth between both of them, but honestly, Ennis is kind of the lead of the film.
I was gonna say,
I think, because it's more of a struggle for him.
Because he's more stuck, but Jack is more willing.
Jack is able to get through and just realize, hey, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I have a need. And I'm going to fulfill it. I want to fulfill it with you, he actually tries to get Ennis to, leave home, let's go start a ranch together. I mean, I will say at the end of the film, it sounds pretty clear that apparently the ranch they were going to open was actually on his dad's land.
Yeah, that's smart.
I don't know if that actually would have worked out for you, Jack, but I also don't know that Jack was really thinking clearly. He was just like...
I was going to say, Jack could get very upset and then just lose it.
Yeah. I mean, Jack was a little bit more open with his feelings. Honestly, the one that I think was angry was Ennis.
Yeah.
Because he really kind of bottled up everything that he felt.
Yeah, he did.
And occasionally would just explode in one way or another. We saw it in the scene where, the two biker guys were speaking lewdly, which, I mean, I get, here they are, speaking very graphically about, conquests of women, and he's here with his family. But, he pretty much explodes on them. And then the scene after Alma confronts him, he just, a guy gets mad at him in the street for walking in front of his truck, goes and pulls the guy out of his truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is just so unwilling to deal with the feelings that he has, that he, erupts in anger, but yeah, it's really, I will say this film is very slow, but intentionally so.
Yeah, I liked the pacing.
I was going to say, I really enjoyed the pacing of it because you kind of got to feel, what they were going through.
Yeah.
Both the positives and the negatives. I will say, when this film came out, it was, pretty much lauded by critics, and it was pretty clearly the front runner for a lot of awards.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the time that it was, I mean, I do know it actually won the BAFTA for Best Picture, which is basically the British Academy Awards.
Oh, okay.
But the Oscars, it did not win any acting award, even though it was nominated all over the place.
Wow.
I think it won Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay. You all right?
Yeah, I just sneeze.
And the music also won.
Oh yeah,
which
I love soundtracks in movies.
Yeah, and
I actually kind of like some of it.
Huh?
I liked most of it.
Yeah, the end especially.
Yeah, especially in the credits.
I mean the credits, but I'm talking about the last beat of the film. The music there when you saw the reveal of the shirts.
Yeah.
Really added to the feeling and the emotion and everything that was going on. But it actually notoriously did not win Best Picture. That was given to Crash, which if you ever look at a list of films that did not deserve to win Best Picture, Crash is going to be towards the top of that list, if not the very first one. A lot of people have actually argued that Crash itself is not a very good film, much less...
I don't even know the film.
I will say I've seen it. I like the structure of it. It is... It's not perfect. And I will say there's some weird messaging that's going on in it. but I mean, when you compare that to this was snubbed because of, the feelings that were, prevalent. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about this film?
Not really. I mean, you made really good use of the music.
Yeah, agreed.
But I can't really think of anything else outside of that.
All right. Well, then, want to go ahead and let people know how they can get into contact with us. So, of course, you can contact us on all of our socials at The Flying Cow Pod. You can also email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. Make sure to check out everything that we've got going on over there. But yeah, next time, the next official podcast we are going to be doing is actually Moonlight.
Yes.
Which is one of the only other clearly queer films
like
on the
frontlining
list.
ones.
Yeah. I will say, obviously we already did Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes.
Otherwise we would have included that in this month as well. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of other I mean, there are definitely one or two others with like side characters that are queer, but as far as like this is what it's about kind of thing, these are really the only ones. And I will say Moonlight also it's not just about the queer experience, it's about the Black queer experience.
Yes.
So that actually is pretty cool because it will be coming out the weekend after Juneteenth.
Yes.
Which make sure that you keep an eye on the feed because we are actually planning on releasing a bonus episode.
Oh, yeah.
On Juneteenth. We'll talk more about that when it comes out. But we are going to do something for that. We're just a couple of white guys doing our best here. But yeah, hopefully that you guys will enjoy that. But yes, make sure that you check out all the stuff we got coming up. But until that time, moo.